Each week we check out a new gun museum. We call it the Firearm Museum Tour. A big part of our gun show Loophole tour is checking out the firearms museums around the country, and we know that they're all interested in getting more visitors and more awareness. So we're going to help by featuring a new museum each week. And this week, let's take a look at the Texas Ranger Hall of Fame and Museum in Waco, Texas. So the museum is located in Waco, next to that river, and in the Texas Ranger complex where their headquarters are. You park out front, walk in through the receptionist there. They said it's okay to take video. So we're going to walk through just quickly and give you a taste, just a flavor of the museum and what it's like. I'd like to first start and say thank you to the people who recommended this museum. I believe it was Martin Ivy, a friend of mine in Dallas, who recommended the museum. And when I mentioned it to other people in Texas, they all agreed that it was something I needed to check out. And it's an amazing museum. So as we walked in the front there and through the reception area and took a left, we walked west, I guess, into this first room, which is all about the history of firearms, the evolution of the machine, and the various companies. And this is amazing. Like, this is the Texas Ranger Museum, but they put a lot of effort into putting some really good information about the evolution of firearms in here. And as you can see, there's some hands-on stuff. You get to pick up a Colt Walker and feel the balance and what it's like to hold 8 pounds of steel. You've got a Colt Pedersen over here that you can not just understand that there's a couple of pieces, but as you can see, you get to take it apart and put it back together. Kids can do this. It's an amazing hands-on piece of history to see what those old guns are all about. So this whole first room is really an interactive, educational experience about firearms. It's worth the trip alone. This could be its own museum. So again, I want to commend the Texas Ranger Hall of Fame and Museum for this first room by itself. It's totally worth the trip. So if you've never been to Waco before, there are some other things to check out in Waco, and I can't encourage you enough to check out the Texas Ranger Museum. So now we're going to walk north. As you can see, this is in an old building. I don't know the significance of the building, but I'm sure there's something there. It's an older building, and they didn't just blow it out and make a fancy new museum inside. As you can see, it's still using the old rooms and everything. So I want to give you a heads up. As you can see, the floor as we go around, it's the old tile, so it's not completely even. So if you have some issues with walking or balance, if you're in a chair or something, keep that in mind. But it's navigable. The floors aren't completely level either. There are some ups and downs and some inclines, so keep that in mind as well. Otherwise, it's a very comfortable museum and easy to access. As you can see in this first room, coming out of the firearms exhibit, there are some of the big achievements for the Texas Rangers, of course, Bonnie and Clyde, and some of the other big achievements. But this is a Hall of Fame for 30 Texas Rangers. The museum began in 1964. It opened for business in 1968. There's no official count on how many firearms are there, but as you can see, there's got to be hundreds. They're in multiple rooms and different displays, but there must be hundreds of guns there, from specimen pieces like these Bonnie and Clyde guns to other significant guns from the Rangers themselves and from some of the illegal guns and stuff. Some really interesting stuff. It's an amazing gun museum, but not just as specimens, but because it's in the context of law enforcement in Texas and the Rangers. Really neat. And as you can see, it goes to modern day. So it's a growing museum that's still alive, and it's not just an old collection that's preserved. It's a growing collection that is evolving, and that part's pretty neat as well. So the Hall of Fame was added in 1973, and like I say, that commemorates 30 Rangers. I only lived in Texas when I was a little kid, so I'm not enough of a Texan to be able to give respect to those 30 Rangers. But in this quick video, I hope that we can show you the diversity and the what all's involved in this museum. There's all kinds of neat stuff here, and we haven't even gotten to the Hall of Fame part yet. So what I'll again is describe what we've been doing here is walking through the museum, kind of walking in that first room, checking out the guns and stuff, and now we're walking through some of the rooms to the north there, and eventually we're going to walk back out through the main room and down a hallway and towards the Hall of Fame. And as you get through the Hall of Fame, there's this corridor with tributes to probably some of the first Rangers. And then of course there's a specific room for the Long Ranger. Out front of this room, you'll find a little display for Walker Texas Rangers, so at least they acknowledge, the Hollywood versions of them. And I thought this was pretty neat. The Long Ranger motto or creed. And again, they offer respect to the various versions of the Long Ranger. It's been around for a long time. It's a little before my time, so I didn't spend too much room in there, but it was definitely impressive that they give the Long Ranger such a predominant area of the museum. After all, it is a Hall of Fame, and I imagine some people might disregard something like this, but obviously they've embraced it and honor it. So pretty neat. And obviously the Long Ranger's been around for a while in lots of different incarnations. So again, they also have some stuff here from the Walker Texas Ranger stuff, which I suppose is pretty neat too. All right, so with that, we'll end it going through the actual Hall of Fame, which I believe sort of wraps around this, I don't know if it's really an auditorium, but a room there, convention room, where you can have events. And I probably will post this whole thing in real time, just walking around, and maybe post that as a separate, half an hour video or something, because it's going to be a while. I really spent some time here. I didn't know what to expect. I knew there was going to be a lot of firearms, but again, the significance of them, the stories, it's so well documented. As you can see as we go around, everything's well lit, everything's well documented. Literally everything on display has some information, and some of it has a lot of information. And if you take a minute and read some of this stuff, the stories behind it, the significance of what these things are commemorating is really neat. So I don't know if I'm giving it justice, but this is the museum, and as you walk back through the museum, we'll pass the gift shop. And I always encourage people to check out gift shops at museums. There's usually your typical stuff, for tourists and things, but there's also some neat stuff for Texas and for law enforcement. So it's worth checking out, and then every purchase, of course, supports that museum. So we'll conclude the video checking out some of the firearms after we check out these cool law enforcement patches in the gift shop. Now, as I alluded to, there is an entire first room there that's just firearms, but then there are firearms all around the rest of the museum in the various displays, and sometimes the firearms, of course, are the focus of a display. So what I did here is spend some time at the museum, but then I also went around and looked at as many of the individual guns as I could. And that's what we're looking at here, is a sped up version of looking through some of the guns in that first room and in the way they were displayed. And I'm all about timelines. I like to see things in perspective, and I think timelines give you some opportunity to see all kinds of stuff, like evolution of the devices themselves, evolution of the culture and society, and in this case, evolution of some of the crimes and stuff that happen. And what that creates is a mix of guns that is just amazing. I don't think there's any museum that has such a crazy mix. I mean, maybe the J.M. Davis Museum could come close, but it's just not the same. So as you can see, there's everything from the little 4-shot Derringers to belt buckles to some of the craziest short shotguns examples that you hardly ever get to see. And this is a law enforcement museum, so they've got a lot of the crime guns and stuff that they've confiscated over the years. And then we get into the guns of the Rangers themselves. So I can't imagine a more fitting memorial or a more commemorative for a Texas Ranger than a firearm. And the engraved guns they have there, again, spread the gambit, and just some amazing pieces of artwork and amazing pieces of history. Check out the museum. If you've been there, let us know in the comments. If you want to go, let us know. We'll help as much as we can to help you get there and give you some advice. On our visit in 2018, we were able to spend almost $100 in the gift shop as a thank you to the museum for all they do. And that's thanks to our Patreons who let us do what we do. So we want to thank them and thank you. Let us know in the comments what you think. As always, thanks for watching.
The guys and gals at gunwebsite.com encourage you to take a CCW course every year, practice at least once a month, and carry every day.